If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I'm happy to sew along with you an oldie but a goodie. This is the Mabel Vintage Handbag by Swoon Patterns. This is a free pattern. Do you believe it? Look how amazing she is, and she's free. Let me show you some of the features of this bag before we get into the guts of the bag. So I modified it a little bit by adding in these D-rings so I could add a crossbody strap. This one I opted to add this chain. This is a 30-inch chain that I got from Emmaline bags. I thought it just went perfect with the elegance of this bag. You have a handle on top. This one I've done in glitter pretty or pinup pink glitter vinyl from Galaxy Kustoms. You can have a turn lock or a magnetic snap closure. All my hardware here is from Emmaline bags. Actually, all of my zippers and zipper pulls are from Emmaline bag for this one as well. When you open it up, I have actually added in a zipper pocket just because I like to have a zipper pocket in all the bags I make. That is not part of the pattern, but look how deep she goes. Like, she is actually a pretty roomy small bag. Okay, I think I already talked about the guts of this bag. My vinyl is glitter, pretty pinup pink glitter vinyl from the Viva Las Vegas glitter collection of Galaxy Kustoms. All of my hardware is from Emmaline bags. Things I changed to this bag, again, I added in D-rings here so you can make a crossbody strap or add on a chain strap like this. Mistakes I made making this bag, which we will find out, is I did my flap a little bit different than how it does in the pattern, and I didn't take into account the seam allowance when attaching my strap. So I do not have top stitching right along my strap here, but you know what? It's really not noticeable. So in the pattern, this will be moved in a little bit closer into here. So it's out of that top stitching thing. What else did I do to it? Again, I added that pocket. And so this is in the pattern, this is a birth bag where you birth it through right here, right through the opening in the back here. I didn't like that. I found an easier way to do it, and I show you how I'm going to do it in this. I did this as a drop-in lining. This was so fast to make as a drop-in lining. You have no idea. And don't let the drop-in lining scare you. This is not a zipper top drop-in lining. It's an open top drop-in lining, which is the easiest to do. It is so easy, and it just makes putting this bag together so fast. It also, I won't lie, I was dreading about having to turn this glitter vinyl through a tiny hole because we all know how glitter vinyl likes to stick to itself, and that would have just killed my arm. So doing it as a drop-in lining, there's absolutely no turning when you put the lining and the exterior together. So it worked out so good. This bag can be made in vinyls, it can be made in cottons. Interfacing wise, okay, so if you're making this in a cotton for your main panels, so your gusset, your front and your back, you'll definitely want to use Decovil Heavy or Peltex in those panels if you are using cotton. That's what gives it its structure. Because I used vinyl, I actually used EBFuse Heavy on my main panels just to give it a little extra stand-up ability. You know, that's my favorite word. EBFuse Heavy is similar to a Decovil Light. So, if using vinyl, I would recommend using one of those two items. All my cotton pieces I backed with EBFuse Light, which is like an SF101 or a medium woven interfacing. All the EBFuse products are from Emmaline bags. In my flap here, I have it interfaced with Decovil Heavy, and I walk you through the placement and everything in this tutorial for that. And besides that, that is all there is. There's minimal pieces to cut. There's minimal pieces to interface. And this just comes together so fast. I think I may have this one sold already. I'm not sure yet, but I have a lot of clients that when I put this on my Facebook page, they wanted it. So hopefully it sells. It's not available until after the classes are done at the end of May, as we are doing this in the Thursday Sew Along classes for May 2023. So if you're watching this after the fact and you want a more slowed down course on how to do this, you can definitely check out the real-time classes on the membership side, and this one is under the Thursday Sew Along tier. So yeah, how about we get to making this amazing bag?
That zipper pocket, you'll need zipper tape and a pull, a turn lock. If doing the crossbody strap, a swivel and a slider and your 2 D-rings, some rivets. And I'm going to use this 30-inch shoulder chain instead of a crossbody strap. All right, so you're going to need your handle piece, your 2 zipper pocket pieces, your main exterior, main interfacing, and your 2 lining main pieces, your 2 exterior gussets, your 2 lining gussets, and your stabilizer for your gusset, your flap exterior main and 2 heavy stabilizer pieces. Okay, so we're going to make our gussets. We're going to do the lining and the exterior at the same time. So you're going to put the long edges or the wider edges at the bottom, right sides together of both the lining and the exteriors, like so. And we are going to sew across here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both. You want to press your seams open. I did a lining piece with just my iron, but I can't iron my vinyl, so I'm just going to use some double-sided tape to hold that seam open and in place on the exterior piece. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and we are going to center our main stabilizer nice and centered on that gusset piece and the 2 main outer pieces. So this is our exteriors, and fuse those in place. Next, we're going to work on our flaps. We want to find our top and bottom centers of our flap, and I'm going to show you my trick for lining up everything and nice and centered. So once you have those marks, draw a line on the wrong side. I'm going to take my Decovil heavy pieces, find my top and bottom centers, draw my line down between those marks, just like so. Same with the other piece. And this will help us get an absolutely perfect seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so we're also going to measure down a 1/2 inch and draw a line from the top of the flap. Take that top stabilizer piece, match up that line down the center, and place it right at that 1/2 inch mark and fuse that in place. Mark another line 1/4 inch away from the bottom part of that stabilizer we just fused, and go ahead and do the same thing and fuse on the bottom one. Now we're going to work on our handle. So we're going to measure in 3/4 inch. Actually, no, I think I did 1/2 inch here. To fold in these raw edges, I'm going to use some double-sided tape here just because I am using vinyl. You can definitely use clips if you prefer. We're going to fold those short edges into that line. Again, use clips if you don't want to use double-sided tape. And then we're going to put this together just like we do any other handle. Again, I'm going to use double-sided tape. You can definitely use clips. We're going to fold the long sides of this into the center line we have drawn. And then we're going to fold it again upon itself. Now this is making a 3/4 inch top handle. I usually go with 1 inch, but because this is such a small and delicate bag, I didn't want to have it an overwhelming sized handle. So I definitely followed the pattern here and made a 3/4 inch handle. So once you have this folded in upon itself like so, clip it in place. You guys could probably hear Coco and Dexter walking around me here. I apologize for that. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to top stitch around all 4 sides with an 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to do my handle a little bit differently here because I don't want it showing through the lining side of the pattern just like it does in the pattern. I should have measured in 1 inch, not ½ inch from each side here. So you're measuring 1.5 inches down, and then just pretend I'm making a mark there at the 1 inch mark, not at the ½ inch mark. My handles ended up being way too close. I did not take into account the seam allowance there. So again, measure in, I believe it was 1.5 inches from the top and 1 inch in on both sides, and create a little kind of box there, and that's going to give us the placement of our handle. So we are adding in these D-rings. If you don't want to do the crossbody, you can definitely leave this part out. This is an added in modification that I've added in. I like to use just a little bit of double-sided tape to help hold this in place while I sew. So we're going to start with one side, put it right into that mark, slide on your 2 D-rings just into the center of the handle for now. And I am going to mark a ½ inch from that short end of that handle and draw a line. And then from that line, I'm going to draw another 3/8 of an inch. You will see what I'm doing here momentarily. You're going to do the same on the opposite side of the handle. You don't have to have this hooked to the bag just yet. We will do that at the machine. Okay, and so for that first little box on the left there, that ½ inch mark, we're going to go ahead and stitch a box. Slide the D-ring down to that stitching and then go at that second line there to make an encasing for our D-ring strap. So here I go around that first little square that we made at that ½ inch mark. Once that's done, go ahead and break your thread. And then take that first D-ring and slide it right down into that stitching, right beside that stitching. And then you're going to sew this D-ring in place by going down that second line that we drew away from that stitching. And then you will repeat this exact same thing, placing the other side of the handle within the marks that we had made and sewing it in place. So that's what that looks like done. I've gone and I put rivets on either side of my D-rings just to give it a little extra security for when we have that strap on. Now we're going to take our lining flap piece and we're going to put it right sides together with this. And we are going to clip all the way around, leaving the top unclipped. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and sew all the way around with a ½ inch seam allowance, leaving that top open. You may want to change into your right zipper foot here to get nice and close to that handle there, rather than running the handle over. It'll just be a lot less bulk for your standard foot to get around, so the zipper foot is super handy here. Once stitched, I took a look inside because I am using a thicker vinyl and I could see that my stitches were looking a little bit stressed out. So I'm going to go ahead and do another line of stitching within the seam allowance, 1/8 of an inch away from that first line. And that's just going to make it so you can't see those threads and they won't look stressed out anymore, and they're going to stay where they need to be. Once that's done, go ahead and trim that seam allowance down. I'm going to use my pinking shears here. And then go ahead and turn this right side out. Roll all those seams in between your fingers, making them nice and sharp. And then I just like to go ahead with my Wonder Clips, and I like to just hold those seams in place to prepare them for top stitching. Now you're going to see that there's the mistake that I made where my handles are way too close to the edge. So of course I'm not going to be able to top stitch right where those handles are because I should have brought my handles in a little bit closer, but hey, it still looks great. Nobody's going to know the difference except for me, and it's still going to be completely functional. So just imagine that those handles aren't as close to the sides as they are, and then what you're going to do once this is all clipped up is you're going to go ahead and you are going to baste the top of this shut, closing up the flap, and then you're going to top stitch all the way around the flap. And once I did that top stitching, I knew exactly what I had done wrong, but hey, still looks great. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to redo it. All is well. I'll just know to make sure I place it that ½ inch more into the center next time. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find the center of our flap because we are going to place our female side of our turn lock. So I'm just kind of marking where my center snip was there and marking the bottom center here. We're measuring a 1 inch up from the finished edge. Definitely make sure it is centered. We do want it to be centered, so double and triple check like I am doing here. Once you're confident that you're nice and centered, measure that 1 inch up. And right where X marks the stop, or the T there, that is going to be the center of our opening of our female side of our snap. Now I have this lovely punch set that I got from Amazon. I just look for the punch that's similar in shape to what I drew for the opening of the turn lock. So I just bang that right out. And look how perfect that pops out. Nice and seamless. Don't have to really get your scissors in there too much. And then I take my hole punch, and where I marked the screw placement from my turn lock, I go ahead and I just punch those openings, or those holes, so the screws have a place to go. And then your turn lock should fit well, and you just put on the backing plate. Use a little bit of Loctite if you have it, and screw that in place. All right, so now we're going to take our main body piece here, and we are going to install the male side of our thumb lock. So once again, you want to find the centers, make sure it's definitely center, and then we're going to measure down 2 inches and make a dot at that 2-inch center mark. And right at that mark is where we are going to install the male side of our turn lock as per the manufacturer's instructions. I'm also going to back it with some scrap Decovil Heavy just to give it a little extra security to make sure it's not going to pull out. So that's done. Kind of gives you an idea of how good that's going to go. It looks nice and centered. I also went ahead and installed my nameplate nice and centered along the bottom, put a piece of duct tape on the back to secure the prongs, and we are done. Go ahead and put that flap aside, and now we're going to work on the exterior. Now, to prepare for a drop-in lining, what you want to do is on the top of our 2 main body pieces, we want to draw a ½ inch line, and on the 2 tops of our gusset, we want to draw a 1-inch line. Make sure you're using a pen that doesn't disappear because we are going to need those later on in the construction. Right, so match the center of the gusset with the center bottom of one of your main panels, clip it in place, bring up the sides to the top, clip it in place, same with the other side. and then start evenly distributing that fabric down and around towards the curve until it looks like the gusset is not going to fit around that main panel like so. This is where you're going to take your scissors and put in some 1/4 inch snips right around that curve, and what this does is it helps spread that fabric out so it will be the same width. See how that works? Go ahead and do that for both sides. Once that's all clipped together, we're going to go ahead and sew around here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm also going to go in and do that second line of stitching within the seam allowance just to strengthen my seam a little bit. Okay, that's one side done. Now right here, I'm going to do a little trick where I'm just that 1 inch mark. I'm going to clip the side seams here just before the stitching type thing so I can lay these nice and flat. And then we are going to baste these nice and flat. So basting these open is really going to help with the bulk when we go to do the drop-in lining and when we go to top stitch this bag. So always at the seams, it's always a little bit hard, but when they're laid open like this, we don't have to worry about it. Go ahead, take the other side of the other main panel and do the exact same thing with the other side of the gusset. Okay, so that is all done. You can go ahead and you can trim the seam allowance up to about 1/4 inch or so. Same with the other side. Once you have these all trimmed up, what you want to do now is grab some double-sided tape. We're going to prep this for a drop-in lining. So right along that 1 inch line that we drew, we're going to take some double-sided tape and just put it right along that line. You can do it along the top or you can do it along that line. It doesn't really matter. If you're doing this in cotton, you could definitely just press this into that line. That's what I will be doing when we get to the lining part because the less tape, the better. Now go ahead and turn this right side out. Would you believe that this exterior is almost done already? I mean, seriously, how fast is that? So this is the only turning of the bag, and it is a really easy turn. Even when I'm using a sticky glitter vinyl, it was not hard to turn through that large opening at all. And because we're doing a drop-in lining, we are not going to have to turn anything else, which is absolutely amazing. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to remove the paper from that tape and we want to fold the raw edges down into that 1 inch line. This is creating a 1/2 inch seam allowance that we are folding over. And this is going to be for when we do the drop-in lining. So go ahead, take your time, make sure it's nice and even all the way around, folded down to that 1 inch line, which is also folding in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Tape is all in place. I also like to just do double duty and go ahead and secure that seam, especially because I'm using vinyl and it wants to fight the tape, with some clips just to help hold those seams in place until we add the lining in. Okay, so that's what that looks like. You can go ahead and set that aside for now. Now, I already went ahead and I did my zipper pocket. That's not part of the pattern. If you want to know how I do that, go ahead and look down below. Take your lining pieces and do the exact same construction as we did with the exterior. So the lining, we do not have to turn right side out. You're going to keep it as it is. You have your ends already folded under. Now we're going to take our flap and we are going to mark from that raw edge a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've also put some double-sided tape across that raw edge, and we were going to go along the back of our main panel like so, and we are going to stick this in, and it's going to go perfectly in between our two side seams and stick that in place nice and straight along that line. Make sure it sticks really, really good. Make sure it's really, really straight. I take my time here. You can see me kind of pulling it away and putting it back. I want it to be absolutely perfect. Double-sided tape is definitely going to help you here. You definitely are going to want to use it. Again, if you're on a domestic, try some Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape. I found it was pretty good on my Juki. Make sure your turn lock lines up, and it does. And then I'm just going to put a couple clips right in here just to kind of hold those ends in. And we're going to take our lining and we're going to put it inside just like so. And then we're going to start matching up our folded end edges. So I'm going to start at my side seams, match up those seams, add it into the clips. The hardest part is around where the flap is, because you're going to have to use your sense to touch quite a bit there. Again, I'm using some hair clips just to help hold my flap a little more stable. I have some double-sided tape along the raw edge of my lining side of my flap as well, and that's going to help hold that lining in place, as we are not going to be able to use clips to do that. So when you get to the back side, after clipping the rest of the folded over edges together, pull the paper off of that tape and then start using your hands. You want it to match up with the exterior fold as well as the lining fold. So we're going to get a nice even top stitch there. So use your sense of touch a lot, making sure they line up, and using that double-sided tape to hold it all in place. Just like so. I've also heard that a glue stick works here without gumming up your needle on a domestic machine. You could always try that, but you do have to wait for the glue to dry in order to do that. Once it's all lined up and you think it looks good, now we're going to go ahead and we are going to top stitch this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all along right along this edge here. I'm going to take this to my cylinder arm. You'll do the exact same way on your free arm if you have it. If you are on a flatbed, you could always turn this inside out again, and then you have the exterior on the inside to get a nice and even top stitch. Find your own way. Oh man, I really dislike my seam guide. It's always in the way. I never use it. I really need to just take it off. Somebody please do remind me. So go ahead and stitch all the way around this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, securing the lining and the exterior together. Once that first initial top stitch is done, I want to do another row of top stitching just to make sure that my flap is going to be nice and secure. So I'm going to now go in with my second row of top stitching at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Once that's done, go ahead and massage your seams like this, making them nice and crisp, and that's it. No turning, nothing. She is completely finished. My flap is secured. I'm putting on my chain here on those D-rings, or if you've done a crossbody strap, pat yourself on the back. She is beautiful. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. Now, how fast did that come together? I really do hope you guys enjoyed the drop-in lining method. That is how I modified it. I can't wait to see all of your Mabels. Make sure you post them on my Facebook group. All that is linked down below in the description. I would love to see your Mabels. Yeah, so if you liked this video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you want to leave a comment for me, you can definitely do that down below. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can always buy me a coffee. That's linked in the description below. And again, check out the membership side. There could be some slowed down classes there that may interest you. Anyways, until the next one, I'll catch you later. Bye.